Okay, guys. This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Time just rolls on, doesn't it? Day after day after day. I've been doing this for more than a decade. Unbelievable. It's Thursday, 9:48 in the morning. As I was sort of predicting, not prophesying, the rain never really came. We had some intermittent showers that were mostly rather light. And now we're expected to have sun during starting around 10, well, starting around now, partially sunny, and then full sunshine for a few hours, and then some kind of symbol they put up. I really don't know what it means. I don't think it means rain. I don't know what it means. Rain, they show you a cloud with raindrops. I don't know what they're talking about here. But they're talking about sunshine again in the latter afternoon. And during the evening, no rain. Tomorrow, they canceled the rain. And we're not going to get rain tomorrow, but it's going to be cold. Tomorrow, the high is supposed to be 57. And then Friday, they're down to a 35% chance of rain. Again, cold. Sunday, partially sunny. Monday, partially sunny. Very cold, though. Highs in the low 50s. And Tuesday, full sunshine. And then Wednesday, full sunshine. We get up to 59. Thursday, partially sunshine. We get to 63. Then 64. Sunshine, sunshine. Then by Saturday, a week from this coming Saturday, we're at 67. So their rain, as I told you, I expected by the last two big storms, didn't really come to much at all. I'm thinking when we have the appearing of Yeshua, we'll have the early and the latter rains then. This has been one of the driest winters I ever remembered. And I have remembered winters with cold days, not rare, but the cold is one thing if you don't have the rain. So me and my wife went out and bought a small supply of firewood, thinking we were going to get, horrible weather. And it's nice because we're going to have cold weather. But you got to understand in Israel the way they build the houses. When you get cold and rainy, it's really miserable. Because the houses have no insulation. The floors are concrete and tile. The roofs are concrete and tile. The walls are concrete. Wall-to-wall carpeting is maybe 1% of the houses in Israel, or a tenth of a percent. You don't see it. Insulation, less than 1%, I would say. We have a friend that works with air conditioners and other things, and he was here yesterday, mostly speaking with my wife, and I was too tired. It was after the broadcast, and he said that the air conditioners that the people buy in Israel, which do have a heating function, he says are junk. They're not worth it. And they're kind of not worth it in a way, but if you put them on in the room, it does heat the room up. The coil heaters, with electric coils, 12 is what I'm running in here now, works good if you point the heat at yourself. And it doesn't work so good when you try to heat a room up with it. When you turn it off within, I don't know, max 15, 30 seconds, the room's like it never happened. So I have these radiator heaters that have an oil in there and a thermostat, and they don't get the room really that warm. They get the chill out of it. So I'm sleeping with that on at night with a great blanket I have, and that's how I get through it. So anyway, what we're going to do today is cover a lot on Trump and his policies. Trump is essentially taking America isolationist when America was very strong in the past a number of times. It was isolationist. And I'll explain that to you. And other things he's doing domestically. I think on the international front, he's doing very poorly, and the people are not cognizant of how poor it is, and they're rather ignorant of it. Trying to move the heater here. And that's the big mistake here. And we'll talk about the hostage release and Netanyahu and the government in general, and not talking about Hamas's offer to give all the hostages back as soon as stage 2 starts, which would be March 1st or 2nd or 3rd or something, probably March 1st or 2nd. And they want a full ceasefire for all time, a permanent ceasefire in Israel, completely out. Egypt and Qatar are backing this, and they're the negotiators, so that's business. And the other very important thing is Egypt has 80 or could be 88,000 soldiers on the borders with Israel and Gaza with tanks, not a huge amount of tanks, but tanks are there. And they're building, and they've practically finished putting military bases, I think maybe 5 in around the Sinai Peninsula. And this is a violation of the Camp David Accord, which I think was Jimmy Carter. Yeah. And the Americans are responsible, according to that accord, to make sure it gets enforced. So the big question is, what is going to happen with Trump in Egypt now? Egypt is threatening to declare war on Israel, and Jordan did too. So the pieces of the puzzle for Zechariah 12 are closing in on us at a good clip. And we'll cover why Egypt has troops there and things of this nature. Okay? And a lot of other stuff like Trump's stimulus package, where every taxpayer is going to get $5,000, and it's probably real, probably pretty soon too. Okay, so I'm going to go into the live stream and make sure we got a live stream and put my posts up, and we'll get going. Make sure we got a live stream, and we got a live stream. Yeah, there's a Thursday hostage exchange. We'll cover that today, rather. It's Thursday. Okay. All right, let me get my posts up. A little tired today, but I've been up a long time working. So maybe that's it. I didn't have my second cup of coffee yet either, so that should help. I went to bed very early last night. It seems with this carnivore diet, you know, in the evening I have myself a snack, which is basically a cheeseburger. And a little while after that, I got rather tired. I used to think that when I eat in the evening, you know, bread or things like that, that I was being tired for the carbs. But Because apparently just eating in the evening doesn't. But I can only push so much food in the meals with all meat, you know. So I don't know. I'll have to find my way. Um, Let me get my email up now. Just be a minute. Still no document coming yet. I'm getting really worried about that. It's going to be a big hassle if the thing doesn't show up. Okay, I think we're good. I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 If I'm to glean anything from the weather reports being so drastically off, they were talking about an apocalyptic storm if it doesn't change. And it was going to be horrendous here with snow, big snow, and many, but it petered out. See, they're not prophets. They can't look at their scientific instruments and then turn around and tell you what's going to happen. People think they do, but God runs the weather, not them. Okay? Sometimes they're right, very often. And what I'm learning this winter in Israel is very often they're rather wrong. I was dreading a big, horrific 3-day storm, and now it's. I was out earlier before I came in to do the broadcast, and the sun was shining, not super bright, but shining, and it started raining at the same time. That's not apocalyptic weather. Okay, I don't even know where to start. There's so much to cover, but let's see what we can get done. Let's see, do we have prayer requests today? Yes. We have a toss request for MM, like the candies, MM toss request. Okay. I'm trying to get rid of this so we don't do it again. Let's see if this is working. Okay. There was another plane crash in Arizona. I don't know what going on with the plane crashes, so we just gotta wait. But I'll tell you, it doesn't. It's not comforting to people. It's a lot of small planes, and if this increases the airliners, people have got to stop flying. So I imagine there's a ton of people working on what's going on, but they're not talking, are they? Trump's not talking about it, is he? Denmark increases their defense spending by, I think, $7 billion, something like that. Not sure on the amount anymore. And the reason I think Denmark is doing that is to shut Trump up. You don't hear any more talk about, Greenland, which is owned by Denmark, 51st state. It could be that Denmark's going to put some military installations in Greenland to make it perhaps a little defendable anyway in case Russia decides to conquer it. But I can't say that for sure. It could also very, very likely have to do with NATO and Europe and Russia, so it maybe has nothing to do with Greenland. It's just a thought I had. Trump listed 8 Latin American cartels as terrorists and put them on the terrorist list. Now, Trump is dead serious about stopping Mexico from smuggling drugs and all the cartel activities in America. But I tell you, this is going to have blowback. It's in prophecy with the walls of the daughter of Babylon coming down. The only walls they got are between Mexico and America. So, like I told you in a previous broadcast, they'll probably start knocking the walls down or something. It's going to get heavy. Trump's flying Reaper drones over Mexico, and the president of Mexico is not a happy camper. We'll see what happens. So Israel's supposed to get 4 dead bodies back today. 1 was there a long time, and 3 are a family called BIBI family. 2 very, very small children, toddlers, and a mother. Then this morning I heard they were showing a video of them alive. So you see how sick they are? They could be making the family think these people are dead, these 3. And then they could produce them alive. I don't know if they're really alive or what's going to happen. They set up a stage to do this production today, and there was pictures of coffins. So they're very sick and demented people. There's been some studies now coming out. I put it on Telegram, my Telegram, of the some report about what happened October 7th, and they're coming out with the majority of the people that invaded Israel were not Hamas. There was thousands, I think 10,000 or something, of Gazan peace-loving civilians that came in and were raping and killing and burning and taking hostages. That's coming out, and it's going to get rather well publicized around the world. Not that I think the nations care, because I don't think they care. I really don't think they care. They just as soon get rid of Israel. They don't know that when Israel's gone, the Muslim terrorists are going to come for the other infidels. The Saturday people first, they say, and then the Sunday people. You can't talk to them. They're like in a stupor. So I don't know what goes on in their minds, and I'm not even sure much goes on in their minds. Trump is seeming to be finished with Europe. He's making numerous statements of pulling American troops out of Europe. He has a lot of them in Ramstein, Germany. I gotta take this. Suspected spam. Wait, it might be the super. Let me just. Yes. Yes. Mise. From you have English? What? No, thank you. It was a mortgage company. I was thinking I have a supermarket delivery coming, but they would have gotten it to me earlier. Okay. So he's also talking about putting tariffs on Europe. I am completely convinced Trump will put reciprocal tariffs on Europe. Likely Europe will hate it and suck it up. Maybe they'll reduce their tariffs. So if they have a 10% tariff, just picking a number, on some American goods, say cereal, and they send cereal to America, 10% tax on that. So if they reduce the tax to 3%, then America reduces it to 3%. One of the gripes that was coming out from Trump's team was alcoholic beverages. There's no tax in America on like French wine or German wine and other alcoholic beverages, yet they tax our stuff. So that's going to curtail it. Look, you got to understand what Trump's doing with the tariffs, and it's really intelligent. And I'll explain why I think it's intelligent. He intends to eliminate the IRS. He just laid off 6,000 IRS workers. That's a drop in the bucket, and it's just the beginning. They probably have 250,000 of them or something. And he's going to replace the IRS with what's called an ERS, an external revenue service, making a play on words. And they're probably not going to be IRS employees, because the IRS employees for many decades, I would say even going back 60, 70 years, 80 years, have been extremely punitive to the American people. In World War II, the people were paying a 2% income tax, and during the war, people were saying, I'm proud to pay my taxes. You ever hear anybody say that now? And the rich, big corporations don't pay anywhere near what you think they pay. They got more lawyers than the IRS could dedicate. They fight in the courts. They got tremendous political influence, which the IRS does not have. The IRS doesn't have political influence, they're government workers. And he's, they're a very bad operation, okay? Because they're horrible with the people, okay? And they have been for decades, and there's no arguing with them. There's no, you can take them to court. It's possible, and the IRS hates it if you take them to court, but they'll still fight you. Sometimes if their case is lousy, they'll settle with you on the way to court just to get rid of you. So they're terrible people, and I don't know how they've managed to corrupt so many people to be so mean to their fellow Americans, but it's been the case for almost 100 years. And when they first started, they were not that way, which was 1913. Well, December, they started in 14, but now they're terrible, and the state taxing authorities took their role model, and they're terrible too, So what Trump's doing is getting rid of them. The people don't want them, and they're highly inefficient. So he's going to replace them with this ERS, with tariffs. Now, you have to understand that you, as a taxpayer in the United States, are paying for these tariffs, but not really. You have a choice. You can buy French wine and pay a tariff, which may be 10, 15%, whatever it is, right? Okay, you're free to do that. Nobody's stopping you, but you're going to pay the tariff, the extra price on the wine. Now, the company in France, the vineyard, the wine bottling vineyard operation, has the choice of reducing their prices to cover the 15% and stay more competitive. But you're still paying the 15%. Okay. Now, you don't have to pay that 15%. Just buy California wine. Or if, let's say, Chile, which has excellent wine, by the way, not that I've had a glass of wine. I probably haven't had any wine in a year or thereabouts. I don't think I have for a very, very long time, but maybe longer. But let's say Chile doesn't charge tariffs on American wine coming in, so Trump won't put tariffs on them. So you can buy that, okay? So you're not really paying the taxes unless you want to. So if you want to buy a Mercedes Benz, you're going to pay the taxes, which are probably going to be rather high, by the way. I would think 25% or more. But you don't have to buy a Mercedes Benz, buy a Ford, and you don't have the tariff. You understand what's going to happen? So Ford has to close their plants in Mexico because that's going to be a 25% tariff if they have plants in Canada. I think some car companies in Canada, they're going to have to close them down and beat the 25% Canadian tariff. But I think the cars are going to have an additional tariff to make it impossible. Where I think the only people that are going to buy a Mercedes are the wealthier people that are diehards. Well, I've had Mercedes for 22 years. That's all I'm going to buy. Yeah, they're going to go buy a Mercedes. As somebody that wants to buy a $500,000 exotic car, yeah, he'll still buy the Mercedes. He doesn't care. You know, but what percent of the people is that buy Mercedes? 10%, 5%? You know. So can Mercedes reduce the prices and cover it that way? In the case of the German car manufacturers, no. They're dedicated, those workers in Germany are probably making $50, $60, $70 an hour or something like that. They ain't giving that up. It ain't gonna happen. They can look for markets in other part of the world, absolutely, and get more competitive, yeah. Trump doesn't care about that. Be my guest. So you're going to buy an American car because it's going to be, you know, from Mexico or, well, from Germany, it's going to be drastically cheaper. So the American cars are going to be more desirable, and it'll give the chance for the Americans to maybe raise their prices a little, but I'm not so sure they're going to want that. Okay, they might go 5% or 3% or something, but they're not going to go 20%. They're not going to do that. It's bad publicity, and they're not going to do it. If they did do it, it would be years down the road. So it's not forcing you to pay taxes like the IRS does. You don't have to pay them. If you don't want to, just don't buy foreign. Now let's talk about the stimulus. What he's doing is this, the DOGE operation, Elon Musk and stuff. In a month, they've trimmed $55 billion off the government spending budget with these craziness things that the government was spending money on and with, and departments and salaries. So Trump laid a bunch off. The real estate prices in Washington, D.C. are crashing. They're probably going to go down to, you know, 40 or 30% of what they were eventually, I think. And then when they go down low enough, they were down 36% last week. As a guess, they're probably down 40, 42% by now, you know. They're going to go down until they get low enough and they don't bottom out any lower. Then investors go in and buy them. There'll probably be foreclosures and bankruptcies and stuff like that. Okay? And Trump's not finished. Like, he just got rid of 6,000 IRS workers. Well, they may not have been in D.C. They could have been in Denver or Miami, you know. But I don't know where they were. But yeah, it's going to go down lower because more and more layoffs are definitely on the way. Okay? And he's not hiring. He's probably not going to fire the criminal investigators in the IRS that have badges and guns. He'll want them for fighting the drug cartels, fighting illegal aliens, fighting drugs. So they will be transferred to other departments in law enforcement and the Fed. They can easily shift over. It's not difficult at all for them. The training is, you know, they'll if they switch to ICE, what'll happen is they'll probably have a 4-week course where they'll teach them all about immigration and customs laws, procedures, practices, stuff like that. But in terms of learning how to prepare a request for search warrant, learning how to do a felony vehicle stop, learning how to surround the house, how to do entry, yeah, all of this stuff, uh, wiretapping, surveillance, they have all these skills, fingerprints, and how to deal with a crime scene. They know all this. So you just got to teach them. So it's very easy to transition them. So I don't believe they're going to get fired. Now comes ATF. Trump is whittling them away. He's keeping it on the back burner, but he's not ignoring it. Basically, he's going to just stop them because they have been, since the 1967 Gun Control Act. I remember all these things. I was a kid, I used to read Guns and Ammo magazines in New York, and they were selling, I remember the boys' anti-tank rifle. It was a 51 caliber World War II weapon, and they were selling a mail order on the in their magazine for, I think it was $100, and they mail it to you. Now, back then there was probably, I don't know, maybe 6 to 9 states that wouldn't let you get a mail order gun. Most other states would. Now some would let you have a mail order rifle only, some let you have a pistol. I remember we used to drive up to Westchester on the weekend as a kid, and we'd go to department stores. My father liked classical music, and he used to buy records that were close out classical. They used to be like 99 cents, 69 cents. And we used to go over there, we'd buy, look for sales, and we'd eat at McDonald's, you know. And, you know, I was not wealthy. And I used to see when it was hunting season in the sporting goods department by the cash register so the clerk could watch it. They had cases of World War II surplus rifles, 303s, odd calibers from Europe and even Asia. And they were, you know, $7, $10. And you just went to the register, you had to show your driver's license that you were old enough, and that was it. You carried it out. Cash and carry. You were able to buy machine guns back then in many states. Mail order, even, I think. You were able to buy that. People had Schmeissers from World War II, the German 9mm machine gun. It was pretty good. Big, bulky thing. About the size of a full-size Uzi. It had a wire stock that folded out. You know, this was what went on with the guns. There was, you know, it was a free for all. There were no yellow sheets in gun dealer. Now, you know, New York was very restrictive. Um, DC was, I think Chicago, Illinois was, Virginia was, California was not that bad back then, but they were reasonably bad. And then they started getting crazy. In Florida, in the 60s, they had a three day wait on a pistol. I think it was three. It could have been 5 days. I think it was three. A waiting period on a pistol. And they would tell them that's because people get depressed, they go buy a pistol, they go home and blow their brains out. So the thought was they wouldn't wait 3 days. Yeah, they'd throw themselves off a roof or a bridge instead, right? It was just the beginning of harassing uh, people. Now, this was after 67, okay? Um, so I don't know what Trump, people used to buy silencers. Now, a lot of states eliminated them because they were looking at Hollywood movies and they thought you take a pistol, put a silencer on it, you can walk up to somebody in a mall and shoot them in the back and nobody's going to hear it. It's going to go, yeah, it's absurd. If you want a silencer that's really going to silence your gun, it's going to be probably at least 12 inches long and about that thick. that maybe 10 inches, 9 inches, you silence a pistol. But you're not going to silence a revolver very well because of that cylinder. There's a gap between the cylinder and the barrel. It's just a very small gap, but there's a gap. And the gases, which is going to cause the noise and the smoke and all that, are going to come out. So your revolvers are never going to get that quiet. Your semi-automatic pistols will get quite quiet, but they're still going to make noise because the recoil from the slide is going to let some of the gases and the noise out. But you can get them reasonably quiet. If you want to talk about a 22, like a little Beretta 22 pistol or something like that, yeah, you can put probably a 4 or 5 inch silencer on that and get it quite quiet. Okay. But that's not a hitman gun. So people like buying silencers, let's say back in the 30s and stuff, because then they could go practice shooting their hunting rifles or whatever they were going to do on their property. Let's say they had 1 or 2 acres and the neighbors were, 30, 40 yards away. So they wouldn't disturb the neighbors and they didn't have to wear earplugs. So, it appears now that a judge ruled, but I don't think it was the Supreme Court. One of the judges in one of the federal districts recently ruled that ATF has no control over silencers because it's not a gun. See, if you want to buy a laser sight for your gun, ATF has no control over that because it's not part of your gun. If you want to buy mother of pearl pearl grips for your gun, you can buy them. ATF has no control over that. Okay? So they're saying the silencer should be the same thing. Then the ATF has gotten stupid, like they come up with you can't have a short barreled shotgun. Well, before 67, people used to buy, I tell you what it was called the Auto Burglar. I think High Standard made it. I'm not sure of the company. And it was still around the 10, 12-inch barrel shotgun without much of a stock. Now, the reality of this is if you're going to shoot double a buck, you need to have a 14-inch barrel, or the performance of the shotgun drops off miserably, like the pellets scatter like this. Now, law enforcement uses a shorter barrel than that, I think even a 10 or 12-inch, but they use that, they put it a few inches away from the hinges of a door or the lock on a door, and they probably use the slug and then they fire it to gain entry into a home or an office that has a locked door. But they're trying to control their ballistics for a few inches, assuming you're trying to get 20 feet with a shotgun and you go below 14 inches. Well, it starts getting very, very iffy. It's hard to hit. They don't have great accuracy if you're using the pellets. With using a slug, you probably can get 10 feet easily without suffering, maybe 12 or 15 feet. But if you start getting out to 25 feet, I think you're going to have trouble with that thing too. So but people want it psychologically, okay? And then they want, I think they want a shotgun to be 16 inches or it's illegal, and they want a rifle, I believe, to be 18 inches. I think it's 18. Or it's a short barreled rifle and it's a controlled item and you got to go through fingerprints, pictures, a letter from your local sheriff or police chief that they're okay with you having it and all this. It's just harassment, okay? They have no right to try to figure out how big your rifle or shotgun should be in the barrel length. It's stupid. It's just harassment. Then they get into other stupidity, like guys back even around the year 2000-ish, they started selling .223 ammo in pistols. I bought one or two of those many years ago when I was still working in the world, and they were about this big, and you could shoot them, and they were pistols, and you could put rifle clips in them. So you could put a 40 round clip in a 223 pistol, and I put an optical sight on it. I think I zeroed it for 50 feet. It was a very, very efficient gun. Very efficient. There was no problem with it. It was $700 around 2002 or something like that. It was, so you basically had a short barreled rifle, but you were calling it a pistol. Now, it used to be you weren't allowed to buy any kind of gun with a caliber more than 50 cal. But now they're selling them, and I don't know, the ATF doesn't seem to bother them. What you would do with such a thing, I don't know. You know, they have a gun called a 458 Winchester Magnum that is commonly used for murdering innocent animals, doing no harm to you, like hippos and rhinos and elephants, and they seem to work pretty good on massive game. So they have 700.700 rifles, and seen people shoot them and they get knocked over, you know, and stuff like this. And so they are just harassing the daylight side of people. What about magazine capacity? What does the ATF care for? If you could kill somebody and you had a two-shot magazine, you could kill them. Initially, most of their laws, being former law enforcement when I was young, I could see that most of them were designed to try to protect cops from the citizens. Trump's not worried about that because the way things are going now, although these people are completely ignoring the international horizon, and that's going to be a fatal mistake, Trump's popularity with the people is going to be tremendously high. But why no short-barreled rifles? Because the police were wearing these bulletproof vests that would not stop a rifle. Why no short-barreled shotgun? Because the bulletproof vest just covers this little area, and the shotguns throw pellets all over the place, and they could get the cop in the face and the neck and the hips and all that, the pelvis. You know, so you can't. They don't want people concealing these things like the Steve McQueen TV series in the early 60s or the 50s called Wanted Dead or Alive. They took a 30 caliber lever action rifle and modified it so he could carry it in a holster. And he would just work the lever, and it had he had some rig with the trigger, so you work the lever and it would fire. It was a real gun. They actually had to pay the taxes and get it done. It was a real gun, but I'm rather certain they had it deactivated, so they probably put an inch or two inside the barrel where you couldn't see it. They probably put a very heavy steel bar in there, or they just put, you know, a bunch of steel welded in it, so you couldn't do much harm. But they might not have done that because smoke was coming out of the thing. So maybe they left the barrel open, but they're usually extremely careful, and they don't allow any live ammunition to be around the set. And they got a guy, you know, from the prop department that takes care of this thing and watches it like a hawk, you know. So people wanted to have, you know, that's a solution to a non-existent problem, you know, having that. Silences, they didn't want people killing cops and other people, mostly cops. Full automatic weapons, they didn't want people mowing the cops down. That was going on in the wars with the Elliott Ness and the original ATF, where they were fighting against the bootleggers and Al Capone and Frank Nitti and Dutch Schultz and all of those characters, you know. And they were buying machine guns. They were buying the 50 caliber, 45 caliber Thompson submachine gun, which had a straight clip with 20 rounds or a drum with 50. So these guys with a drum magazine could wage a heck of a good war against the other gangs and the police. Babyface Nelson used to carry these, and I believe he carried extra drum magazines. And he liked robbing banks. And then when the cops would start chasing him while he was getting away from the bank, he had a team with him. They would fire their 45 caliber Thompsons at the police car, and the police would give up chase. They didn't want any part of that because there was a wall of bullets coming at their car, and the 45 could mess up their engine, the radiator, the fan, the generator. Um, hit the passenger compartment, break the windows, kill them. You know, they didn't want that. And back in the late 20s, the mobsters were doing the bootlegging. They were building bulletproof cars. They were basically putting sheet metal, heavy hard steel in the car, or building the panels out of heavy steel. So the car was probably a piece of crap in reality because it was overloaded with weight, and they didn't have the technology today with beefing up the springs and getting 8 or 10 ply tires or run flats, or but they probably just used these cars in the city, like getting around Chicago. So the car probably rarely went more than 35 miles an hour. It probably had a top speed of 80 or 90, um, but the brakes would be worthless on that. I think it would be, and the tires. So it was for, going out at night, going to a restaurant, going to the speakeasy, visiting somebody, and it would basically bounce the bullets off it. They even had glass then that could stop bullets. So, that was a lot of what I saw. And then the concealed weapons laws, which in many states were extremely prohibitive, not anymore, would be designed. The cops didn't want people packing a gun they didn't know about and they could get killed. So when I was analyzing all the laws, it used to be, I remember going into gun stores and buying armor piercing bullets. What year was that? I would say in the late 70s. So one of the ways to play the game was by armor piercing bullets for a 25 caliber semi-automatic pistol, which would be a total length of 4 inches. They were very tiny. Easily put it in your pocket. You could put it in your shirt pocket. You know, they were easily concealed, and they had typically 6+1. Browning made an excellent one. They stopped making it probably in the 90s, I guess. It was an excellent gun, and there was a company called, what was the name of it? I can't remember. Made a complete copy. They got all the blueprints for the Browning. Maybe they made an economic deal with them, and they made it in stainless steel with imitation mother of pearl grips. And I don't know. The gun was about $100, $150. It worked. I had one, and you could put the armor-piercing bullets in it. Because 25 is not a reliable bullet. I know a story where they had an accidental discharge, and there was like what you call a break front piece of furniture. It's a big wood high thing, and it has shelves, and you put little knickknacks in there to display it to people. It is non-functional decoration for your living room or your parlor or something. So the bullet went off with a regular full metal jacket, 50 caliber, and they were, I think, I don't remember how many grains the bullet was. Probably around 25 cal, probably about 50 grain, 49, 50 grain bullet. Hit the glass over one of the shelves and broke the glass. and then the bullet just fell down on the shelf. It didn't have much more power. So, if somebody had big, heavy clothing on, it wouldn't do much. If they had a T-shirt on and you shot them, you'd get some penetration, but not very much. Now, you put the armor-piercing bullet in, and you shot him, and it would go, probably 8, 9, 10 inches inside the person, and it became lethal. Oh, they didn't want you having those. And then you could buy armor piercing in 38, 357, 45, and all these other rounds. I mean, they had rifle. Now, I believe you could still buy armor piercing for rifles today. They don't care about that. So you don't really need to go shoot a massive animal if you want to slaughter the poor thing just because you want to kill them and put them on your wall, which is rather sick. And you kill it. You can just buy armor-piercing ammo. You don't have to buy. So you get a 30-06 180 grain armor-piercing shell, and you can go through probably an elephant. But in a lot of these foreign countries, you can't bring armor-piercing ammo where they go hunting in, foreign countries like Africa and other places. You can't. They don't let you bring that in. Let me look at the live stream. By now, we probably got bad people in there making nasty comments. Let's get rid of them. No, we're doing good. So he's going to dismantle the ATF, and that's going to be more federal employees going away. Now, ATF is alcohol, tobacco, firearms. They also do explosives. Now, Trump wants them doing explosives. Trump's not talking about, I think every citizen should be able to go down and buy Semtech and dynamite and blaster caps and go out on the 4th of July and demolish your neighbor's house. Okay. No, that's not gonna happen. Okay, nobody's pushing for that. Okay, and they also do a lot of work at terrorist attacks with explosives, so they're gonna stay. Now they might transfer the gun people over to that because they have a big need for that. Okay. Alcohol. They're definitely going to keep the agents there monitoring the breweries and stopping people from making alcohol without paying the taxes. That's going to happen. They're not going to stop. Tobacco. Well, they don't want people buying tobacco products in one state, bringing them to another and selling them at a lower price. I think the same applies to certain liquors and beers. I'm not sure. So it's the whole firearms division that's going to get the axe, and they'll probably take the criminal, the badge and gun guys, and put them in the other divisions of ATF, I guess. That's my opinion of what he'll do with that. A lot of these other things, like special agents in the Department of Education, well, they're completely worthless. You have a Department of Education that doesn't teach anything great. You got a Department of Agriculture that doesn't grow anything great. You got a Food and Drug Administration that doesn't make any food or drugs. A lot of these agents, I think, maybe not Food and Drug, Education, they'll just move them into other agencies where Trump's going to need them with the illegals and stuff like that. But the regular people that work in the offices, a lot of them are going to be gone. So they've saved $55 billion on the budget in the first 30 days. They expect by sometime in 2026 to have that to $2 trillion. So they're talking about giving 20% of that savings back to the people in America in the form of a stimulus check. And they're saying that the American public was overpaying on their taxes because they were feeding these moronic programs and departments. So they're talking about giving the people that pay taxes this money, and they're using a figure of $5,000. And I think that they're going to do that rather soon, and I don't think that's going to be the only stimulus check. I think a few months after that, there'll probably be another 5,000 or maybe even more. Now, is that going to stimulate the American economy? Oh, you have no idea. Like a boom, you know. Very few people are going to just take the 5,000 and put it in a bank and say, ho hum. The guy's making, 300,000, 800,000 a year. It's not going to pay. They're not going to pay attention. Oh, another 5,000, great, move on, right? But the other people are going to use it to do what? Bang down their credit card bills, repair the house that needs it, um, get another TV because theirs is on the blink, buy clothes for the kids, trade the car in because it's too old and breaking down. If they're in better shape, they may take a trip. They may buy needed furniture like a new bed. Um, some might use it to try to get a down payment going on a house. With different people, it's going to vary. Okay, some people might just put it in the bank and then, oh, I haven't had a pair of shoes in 3 years and go buy shoes. Yes, it's going to stimulate the economy, and is it going to get more jobs? Yes. Trump laid off a lot of federal employees and has continued to do so, and that hurts the economy, like the real estate crash in DC. But this is a counteraction, and it helps it. I think if prophetic time allowed, which it doesn't, the people may wind up getting as much as $10,000 or $12,000 by the end of the first 12 months. I mean, the people may actually get a good shot in the arm. If it ever got that high, time won't allow. But if it did, oh, they have their credit card bills down nicely. They'd, have a couple of new things in the house. They'd be very happy. Fix the car, get caught up on the car insurance, the homeowner's insurance, the property taxes. They'd be in pretty nice shape. Would they love Trump for this? You have no idea how much they would love Trump for this. They would love Trump immensely, and his popularity would soar. Okay? And is it going to happen? I would say almost for sure it'll happen. Nothing's for sure until it happens, but I'm rather sure Trump's going to do this. All right? I mean, it's going to make the people so happy, but the people don't pay attention to international things, and that's where the downfall of America is going to come. With their invasion in Jeremiah 50:51, Isaiah 47. They don't pay attention. They're just watching the domestic. Oh, we're getting rid of gun control. Before Trump's finished, there's probably not going to be any carry concealed weapons permit, and probably everybody in the United States is going to be able to take their pistols, stick it in their pocket or in their purse, and go out for a walk. Can he prevent the states from stopping it? Yes, because it's in the Constitution. You have the right to keep and bear arms. Where do you draw the line? Do you let the people have a cannon, an artillery piece? Believe me, I was in the gun business many years ago for a while. If you were selling artillery pieces, they would, you'd be able to, manufacturers would be able to make them probably for $25,000 or something like that. Would people buy them? I guarantee you they'd buy them, and they'd buy 100 shells with it at $250 or $500 a shell or something. They would. I promise you. They'd put it in their living room and show people, There's no movement for that. They're not looking for mortars. They're not looking for people to have hand grenades. None of that. They're not going to do that. Okay? Are they going to let people have full automatic guns? That wouldn't happen right away, I don't think, but it might. I don't know. I don't know. But prophetic time's not going to allow for this. You know, if you gave Trump the full 4 years, I'm sure that you'd be able to, you know, I'm not so sure on the machine guns how far they want to go with that. You know, I don't know. That they say that's of no value for hunting. Well, it is for self-defense, though. But the likelihood of hitting people in your background, innocent people and property, is very high. So I don't know. I doubt they'll go there. The silencers, I'm sure they'll have silencers. That's coming. The other problem with silencers is people go out in the woods and they start trying to kill animals out of hunting season, and the the wildlife authorities can't hear them. Zelensky and Trump. Zelensky can't account for half of the money given to him. He's a crook. Trump said the guy was a moderately successful comedian and he becomes the president of Ukraine. Trump's finished with him. He's not even negotiating with Zelensky. He's negotiating with Trump, with Putin. Now the EU is preparing a $700 billion aid package to Ukraine military. They may do it in spite of Trump. See, the relations with Europe and Trump are getting ice cold. The relations with Canada and Mexico and Trump are pretty cold. The relations with a lot of Asia and Trump is getting real cold, like North Korea and China. Okay. I don't know much about South America, but you haven't heard anything about Panama and Greenland anymore, have you? Well, I think he dropped those ideas. Trump is not in the European Union, and who's America's best ally in Europe? The UK. Are they in the European Union? No. Is Trump going to tax the UK's? Oh, I don't think so. Not much of anything. But European Union, yeah. Is Trump justified? Well, you took advantage of us all these years. He is. He is. Okay. I don't know what he's going to work out with Putin. Do I think he can pull something off with Putin? Probably. Probably. He's going to want Ukraine to keep those precious metals and minerals so the United States could regain the few $100 billion they gave to Ukraine. Maybe it's 4, 5, 600 billion. I don't know. It's a lot. Maybe it's 300 billion. It's still a lot. And he's going to have to persuade Putin to do it. But I think that America and Russia are not likely to go to war over Ukraine. Europe and Russia maybe. I don't think Trump cares one bit about NATO. Big mistake. Because that puts him on his own. But he can have treaties with other countries that are in NATO or not in NATO, and the NATO thing doesn't make any difference. So he could still have treaties with countries ignoring NATO, even if they're in NATO. I'm not hearing anything going on with Social Security. People but belly aching about, well, they're not belly aching, they're talking about people getting huge amounts of increases in Social Security. I haven't heard Trump talk about that. Remember, the majority of Social Security recipients would get that stimulus check. The taxes on Social Security income are going away, so that's probably all they're going to see this year, as I'm seeing it develop. I could be wrong. I'm The other thing that we need to understand is the um, getting rid of the IRS, the tariffs, trimming the United States budget by trillions is going to strengthen the US dollar rather significantly. Okay? And this is good for the American people. What the ramifications with that would be, taking trips all around the world would be remarkably cheap. Okay? You know, when I was in graduate school in '73, I knew guys had that were in graduate school. I was going for an MBA, and I was very young, and they were not. Some of them were in their 30s, they had 2 or 3 kids. They'd been in business for many years. They decided to pick up an MBA. You know, when you had the MBA back in the '70s, when I had mine, all you really had to do was show up for a job interview, and they hired you. It was all these corporations wanted to hire MBAs all the time. It was like just show up for the interview, you know. So um, they would tell me stories. I hang out with them, you know. And one guy told me that, you know, you could go to Europe with 5 grand and live there in Italy. He said Italy, and you could go live in Italy for 5 grand. And what these characters would do is they'd go to Italy. That was one of the more desirable locations. With the American dollar was, you know, strong. It was still silverback, you know, and they didn't have the euro yet, you know. So I guess Italy had a lira or something. So they'd go to Italy and they'd get themselves a little hotel room where they didn't want to, you know, it had a private bath and a sink and a mirror and a bed and a TV and a phone and, you know, maybe a balcony. And they didn't want to clean the place. You know, these were people that like drinking, okay? And they would, you know, wake up, do whatever they want to do, go down to the piazza in the morning and drink their espresso or their coffee or cappuccino, whatever they want to have some breakfast, and then they would go to the beach or whatever. You know, they were chasing girls, you know, and they would go there for 6 months on $5,000. That's how strong the American dollar was. You know, if you go back in the '60s, it was even stronger. You know, this was before the gasoline crisis back in the early '70s, so it was really strong. And before um, Nixon floated the dollar, you know, you had silver certificates where you could redeem this for $1 at any federal bank. You know, you were able to go walk in, and people were using silver dollar in their pockets as currency. They were worth $1. What's it worth today? $30. So what's your inflation like from 1973 today? 30 times. Is that hard to figure out? Gold was probably about $35 an ounce back then. What's it today? Almost $3,000. It's about 30 times. Did anybody ever tell you that? No. Okay, back then, if you made $10,000 a year, you were doing okay. Multiplied by 30, you got 300,000 a year. So if you're making $300,000 a year today in America, you're doing okay. You're not wealthy, but you're doing okay. You're not going to sweat your credit card bills, your power bill, your insurance bill, your car repairs. You're going to still buy whatever you want to eat in the supermarket, you know, that kind of thing. So Egypt has 80,000 or 88,000 on the borders with Gaza and Israel, and they built 5 bases. and they're threatening to wage war on Israel. And the bottom line here is not that they're just going to wage war on Israel because it's a good thing to do and, Allah wants them to wipe us out. No. It's because they don't want anybody getting expelled from Gaza. They don't want Hamas going out, and they don't want the civilians going out. They want to make sure these Arabs in Gaza can stay there, rebuild, which Egypt will help them with, to destroy Israel another day. Now they're investigating Israel's investigating Egypt's role in the October 7th massacre. Well, I'll tell you what their role was. For years, they let Hamas smuggle concrete, tunnel-making equipment, heavy equipment, weapons, and every other crazy thing in from Egypt. Yeah, they're very complicit. They got blood on their hands. Netanyahu administration has no intention of going to war with Egypt, but my heavenly Father Jehovah does. It's in the Bible. It happens to them from us. So they're making a scare tactic, and Jordan did the same thing. They said, Jordan phrased it a little different. If you're going to send hostages to Jordan, we'll declare war on Israel. So basically, on March 4th or the 3rd, the United Arab League, 53 or so countries, are getting together to present Trump with alternate plans for Gaza, which is going to mean they're going to stay there. Okay. Now, with the mobile homes coming in, a few hundred came in. To put everybody in Gaza in a mobile home, all 2 million people, you'd probably have to have 250,000 mobile homes. They usually cost, let's just run them out. Maybe they get them cheap. They get them for $35,000 or $30,000. It's a tremendous amount of money. Israel doesn't pay for any of this stuff. The other nations do. That's just, you're never going to see that. You're going to see a few thousand of them come in that Hamas is going to live in. That's all you're going to see. They may set them up for the soldiers if they have enough, where they put 6 or 8 of them inside a mobile home. And soldiers work on shifts, so they could run what's called a hotbed, like they do on submarines, where one guy sleep. Maybe they got 5 beds in the thing, or 6 beds. So one guy sleeps 1 8-hour period, another one another 8 hours, another one another 8 hours. So they could take, a lot of their people and use them in the motorhomes or something like that, But Israel agreed to let some come in to get these hostages back. Now, I don't know if the hostages coming out today, probably about 12 million, I'm guessing, are alive or dead. I don't know. They could be playing a sick game with us, just to show the world how much they hate us. It could be. I don't know. It could be psychological. It is psychological warfare, one way or the other, making the people think they're really alive and then deflating their wishes, or I don't know. But it's just to decide to psych out the people. Egypt would take quite a bit of damage if they decided to wage war with Israel. I don't believe they would win. Our F-35s can destroy targets in Egypt, I think, at will. The tanks would be bombed, shot with surface-to-surface missiles, attacked by F-35s, F-15s, F-16s, and our own tanks. There's a very large military buildup in that area right now, and there is not going to be another October 7th that I could detect at all. Israel's well on the alert. Now, remember, they're violating the Camp David Accords with Carter, and America's responsible for enforcement. So this falls on Trump. So rest assured, the Trump team are talking to Egypt, and Egypt is talking to America. If Egypt does this, they cut off from anything from America, any aid, assistance, it just ends, right? Trump wouldn't put up with that because it's going against his plan for Gaza. His plan for Gaza, as it stands now, unless Trump gives it up and throws it out the window, which could happen, as it stands now, it looks like it's the provocation to bring about Zechariah 12. And it looks like it's not far off. Hip, hip, hooray. Um, we're already, Jordan is sounding off, I'll declare war. Egypt sounding off, I'll declare war. Qatar is also, and Egypt came up with this idiot plan to keep Hamas there. They don't want Hamas demilitarized and moved out, just the 20,000 Hamas. They don't want any of that either. So Trump is never going to agree to what they want. Okay? So Israel, I'm sure, is bellyaching. We're talking about going to the UN, about them violating the Camp David Accord. The UN will likely do nothing, and Trump will likely do something, and the UK maybe join them. Turkey is working with Iran to try to get money to Hezbollah and Lebanon. Hezbollah and Lebanon are in freak-out mode because there's no way for them to get money from Iran, so their payroll's not being met. And these maniacs don't have jobs. They're gun for hire. So they're in trouble. And the Lebanon government is not completely on their side yet. It'll shift. Not yet. Or maybe they are and they're just spinning lies for us. That's probably more like it. So at this point, they stopped the flights from Iran and they told Iran, you got to figure out another way to get the money in there. We don't want this because Israel's just going to come, drop bombs on our airport, and if they can blow up the control tower and the radar, we'll be stuck for 6 months without an airport. So don't do that to us. Come up with a more intelligent solution. So Iran's probably trying to figure something out. Okay? Iran has threatened to attack Israel recently, and America, I understand, is at wit's end with the Houthis. If they start attacking American warships and merchant marine vessels, I think Trump's had it with them. I don't think Trump wants to put up with that anymore. But you know what Trump might say? And expect this. He'll go to NATO and Europe and say, listen, I, Donald J. Trump, I'm not him. I'm not going to put up with the Houthis, but I am also not going to be the only one to stop them. I'm not a sucker. We're Uncle Sam, not Uncle Sucker. He uses that terminology. So you guys are going to help me, or I'm going to leave the Houthis alone, pull out, and I'm going to tell them, if you attack any American flag vessel or Navy ship, I will bomb the living daylights out of you. What you do with the other countries is your business. That's what Trump will do. I'm not footing the bill for you in Europe. And he's going to say in Asia and in South and Central America. He says, you guys got to come up with a plan, and we'll do it. If you don't come up with a plan, I'm not going to do it. I'll just tell them they can't touch America. And that won't work because they don't listen to threats, and they'll hit America too. But Trump may just refuse. He may say, I don't need the Red Sea. I'm going to just pull away. We're going to keep our ships in the Middle East for other reasons, but I don't care what they do to your ships. And I might assign destroyers to escort caravans of our ships to do missile takedowns. And we'll see how long it takes till you get sick and tired of having your ships blown up. And then you know my phone number. Call me up then and we'll talk. Would Trump do that? Absolutely. He's tired of being milked by these people. Okay? And what will these people do? They will get scared. But they have ships. India's got ships. They're suffering from this. Italy's got ships. They got aircraft carriers. France got ships. Germany got ships. Lots of countries there have navies and air forces. And you're talking about the stinking Houthis. You're not talking about, you know, fighting China, you know. The Houthis can't do much. They're not going to take your planes down. They could maybe sink your ships if you're not careful, but if you're careful, they won't. You know, so what do you think they'll do? I think they'll kick in with Trump. What about Iran? No, Trump's not going to say the same thing about Iran. No, no. Trump and Israel and the UK, and he might have a few. Maybe he will, because it says Elam will be destroyed by her enemies in the plural. Maybe he pulls this on Europe too, and NATO. He says you want Iran to not have nuclear weapons. Help me. You don't want to help me? Get used to Iran with nuclear weapons. I got a nice big beautiful ocean between me and Iran, and it's way the heck harder for them to hit me than it is to hit you. I also believe Trump is very scared of the cartels in America and the sleeper agents in America. And this is a real big problem that he no longer talks about. When he was running for office, he talked about it. He was using the figure as high as 30 million illegals, and now he shut up about it. But he's acting very fast and very efficiently and strongly against the illegals. So we know he's worried about it. Trump is, if you're playing to the flesh and you make believe there is no God and you could do whatever you want, if it feels good, do it, no problem, right? Trump is very good for that kind of an American because he's playing to the flesh. We're going to make America great again. You're going to have, you know, money, better money, and all that. You're never going to be rich with Trump. What he's going to do is make sure you have enough money to be more content, but you still got to get up and go to work every day in billionaire Satan bots businesses. He's going to make sure of that. That's not going away. Okay? There's never going to be equality in the courts between you and a Satan bot. The motion picture industry and the TV industry are going to start up again eventually, and they're going to make more horrible anti-God, anti-Bible movies and TV shows and everything like that. They'll get away from the multiple sexual gender thing and probably get away from the transgender thing openly anyway, just openly. And but there are plenty of other sins they'll promote, no shortage, right? He doesn't talk about any legalization of drugs. He's not into that. Um, you know, he's playing to the people's flesh. You know, that's all he's doing. He's not getting people closer to God or behaving like a country God favors or anything like that. Is Egypt just threatening um, Israel in an empty way and threatening Trump in an empty way? On the surface, yes, but in reality, based on Bible prophecy, no, it's real. Trump really likes the idea of his resort in the Gaza Strip, and I don't think Trump is likely to anytime soon just say, well, I gave up on that idea. No, I'm not sure. Not sure that's, no. I think he's not going to let Egypt push him around. Egypt's got a big army, but they got older tanks, older jets, older warships. You know, Israel's got submarines that are like equivalent to stealth jets for submarines. And the latest one they got is super stealthy. The hull's not even magnetic. How are you going to find that thing? And we buy diesel subs, not nuclear, because the diesel subs, when they're underwater, run on electric motors. And we get better than 20 knots out of those things underwater. You know, in World War II, the submarines underwater would, you know, go 5, 6, 7 miles an hour. And the depths we could go down are really deep. They probably get down to 800, 900 feet. And they could stay submerged for days, not like a nuclear submarine could stay an incredibly long time. But the diesel submarines are very quiet. The nuclear submarines, not so much. The diesel is much quieter, much harder to find. And Israel's not worried about going 5,000 miles away with the submarines. Well, why? We don't do that. We stay local. We don't go that far. We may go up to the Mediterranean or something like that, but we're already in the Mediterranean when we launch. It's not a big trip for a submarine, you know. So, you know, that's the state of the art here. So I see the evacuation of Hamas and the civilians out of Gaza as provoking the siege. Now, remember, we basically are in a siege with Hezbollah in Lebanon and Gaza in and Hamas in Gaza, although they're not fighting with us. It's sort of like a siege. Now, Egypt has troops on our border. Is that a siege? Lebanon has some troops on the border, but that's going to escalate, I think. Syria is going to be a siege. It's not so much right now, but it will. Iraq doesn't have a border with us, and Turkey is working, Erdogan is working with the moron Khomeini and trying to get Hezbollah paid, and Turkey is basically running Syria now. But not completely. America has bases there. They don't listen to Erdogan. Israel has bases there. They don't listen to Erdogan. But you see how it's all coming together? You see it? So when is Elijah going to emerge? I honestly don't know. I have worked on this and worked on this and worked on this. I think he might emerge before the attack in Zechariah 12:6, where him and Apostle John burn all the enemies up on the right and the left, laying siege to us. Okay? But on the other hand, maybe not. Maybe it's after that that the temple comes down and then Elijah's training the Levites. I can't crack it. I could fit it one way or the other. It might be that the siege is in place and the country of Israel doesn't know what's shaking or what's going on. And Elijah and Apostle John appear and burn up the enemies out of the clear blue sky. Or they won't know where the fire's coming from. How are they going to know? And how are they going to... They're not going to know what happened. They'll think it was a nuke. You see, you can take this so many ways. I want to believe Elijah and Apostle John start working before they take him out. And I think that has a lot of credibility because in Zechariah 12, we don't hear about the IDF or the democracy government of Israel. But again, why would they? They could just be stationed in a defensive posture waiting for the other shoe to drop and the two witnesses burn them up. I don't know. Where's my leaning that Elijah will start working any day now? And I have reasons for that that I will not share, that I believe that, but I don't have scripture for that. That's just things that I have some reason to believe, okay? But again, I don't know the precise timing between the setting up of the siege and Elijah working first. I just sense an urgency or a short period of time for Elijah, but I don't know how to compare with the time for the siege. The siege could drag its feet for weeks, or it could accelerate in hours or days. Remember, Syria fell in 11 days. And Elam could, by some historians' definitions, is Iraq, pieces of Iraq and Syria and Iran. And we know Yemen's going to go down. So, guys, it's such a complicated thing to put it together. Sequence it is hard, and sequencing is just showing the order of things. But setting the time frames for it is even crazy hard. You know? Crazy, super crazy hard. Did we actually go into a Jubilee year on January 30th? I don't know. I don't know if it really is a Jubilee year. And I don't know if the acceptable year means it's a Jubilee year or it just means it's redemption. Redemption doesn't have to follow a 12-month year because it's a Shanat, not a Shanat. And that's just a rough time period. It won't be 2 years, but it could be a short of 2 years. We covered that many times. They don't talk about that in the Bible world, the difference between a Shana and Shanat. They both mean year in English, but they're different. This is an overwhelming, complicated problem, and the only way I know we could get on top of this is to pray for answers. I'm not getting any clear scriptures that clarify it crystal clear for me. It appears that the bad ones in Israel, the 2/3 get cut off, but Elijah is already here before they get cut off. And I don't think the war cuts them off. I think Elijah and Apostle John cut them off, or Jehovah. But probably they get burned up. I really, guys, this is so hard. It's a fine point in prophecy, and it's so hard to get it really lined up very perfectly. Is a heavy difficulty. I've been trying to solve this for a long time. Let me do something with the live stream. I'll just tell them it is in place, and the country official doesn't know what's shaking. So I wish I could come up with a really definitive answer for you. All I can tell you is my hunch is he'll emerge first. And then the Levi, but then if he emerges, there's the temple, or at least the tabernacle, because we're going to have both, it says in Ezekiel 37, the last 3 verses. So he trains the Levites, they do the offerings, they're acceptable to the Lord. Then he unleashes Elijah and Apostle John to burn the enemies up. But for them to get control of the Levites, there's going to have to be extreme signs and wonders, like rising the dead, many serious signs and wonders, you know. Healing with the cutting has to be super, rising up on a cloud, walking on water, raising the dead usually is a good one. Many things, you know, putting plagues on people. It's going to take a lot because they're going to be, of course, pro Yeshua, and these people have been taught their whole life against Yeshua. And when he appears in the sky, in the clouds, then they mourn. Okay? So they're not necessarily accepting Yeshua before that happens, but they get burned up before Yeshua appears in the clouds, as I see it, unless it's the other way around. But Zechariah 12 comes before Zechariah 10. Zechariah 6 comes before Zechariah 12 verse 6 comes before Zechariah 12 verse 10. So, and it says that regarding the believers in Jerusalem, it says that they have Jehovah as their strength. It doesn't say Yeshua. The verse there is Zechariah 12, 3 or 4. I'll get to it right now. I don't know, maybe I'm doing something wrong that I can't get the answer to this. So pray if I'm doing something wrong, it gets revealed to me and I stop. Let's see if it's Zechariah 3. No, it's not 4. It's 5. It's Zechariah 12, 5. And the judges of Judah, which are Elijah and Apostle John, shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, strength in Jehovah of hosts, Elohim. That's not Yeshua. So maybe they still have not converted to Yeshua. They're just trying to serve Jehovah and follow the law, man. I don't know. Maybe they're the Levites that he's trained are with Yeshua. I think that would have to be the case for the offerings to be acceptable to the Lord. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I see it that way. And a lot of the people are doing the sacrifices and the offerings because they know that's in the Torah. And they're all waiting for Elijah, so they're doing it. They're not quite believing in Yeshua until he appears in the clouds. Because it's after that they mourn, not until he appears in the clouds. So when you analyze that deeply, it appears they may not understand that at the time they were burned up. It's very, very hard. Maybe I should just give up on trying to solve this, because it may not be an answer that Jehovah's going to give us. That could be the case too, couldn't it? Of course. It doesn't say, well, I don't think we're going to know the day of the hour when he appears, but there's no scripture that says we're not going to know the day of the hour when Elijah appears. I don't see such a scripture. But maybe he doesn't want us to get that close to things yet. Because if we knew when he appeared, we would still not know when Yeshua appears in the clouds. Maybe the scripture just applies to the return of Yeshua to earth. Like Revelation 19 at the end of the second 70. And you shall not know the day of the hour. It may not appear to his appearing in the clouds, but there's no scripture that tells us where it's going to, the timing for that. We can't derive timing with any precision, you know. We can't. It's a real perplexing problem. But we are seeing the siege approaching, and there's no prohibition against us knowing when the siege goes into place. But how long the siege lasts, we don't know. Siege is not an invasion. So they surround us on our borders, and they wait and get all collective, and then they would start attacking us. But before that happens, Elijah would wipe them out, and Apostle John. Like with Pharaoh, he chased the children of Israel. They got the Red Sea opened, and they were scared. There, look, Egypt's coming. Ay, 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 vey, what now? And then Moses says, relax. The winds come, dries up the Red Sea. Next morning, they walk through dry shot, I believe. And then the crazy Pharaoh says, oh, we'll go chase them through the Red Sea after them. And then God collapses the Red Sea on them and they drown, right? So that's not so hard to imagine, that. So they were scared they were going to get it, but they got delivered by the original two judges, Moses and Aaron, predominantly Moses. So the siege makes Israel think they're going to get it, but they get delivered by the two judges of the latter days, which is Elijah and Apostle John. So God lets it get close, and then there's a deliverance. Then I believe the bad ones in Israel are given a chance to repent, and they don't. They keep trying to play their sick game, our gods are gods, which is laughable. And then they get burned up, and they become ashes under your feet. And it appears to me that it's very likely that Elijah and or Apostle John burned them up, maybe just Elijah. And Apostle John may be doing something else at the time, I don't know. And they get, they're burned up. They're gone. Ashes under your feet. That could likely happen before the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, or at the same time. Or maybe God gives them a chance after the appearing and they get burned up. But when you look at Malachi 4, which you should do, and you get the sequencing in Malachi 4 pretty easily, it's verse 1, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day cometh that burneth them up, saith Jehovah of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness. So for the people that fear his name, Yeshua appears in the clouds with healing in its extremities, and you will frolic about like calves out of the stall. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith Jehovah of hosts. So it could be that it's the same day they get burned up, and the regular people get the everlasting life and tread down their ashes. That's how it looks, doesn't it? I mean, ashes don't stick around for a long time. They blow away, and rain could come, they get ground into them. So it's probably the same day. It's not of tremendous importance if Elijah and Apostle John do it, or God does it, or Yeshua does it. It's really not that important. Somebody's going to do it. And that's it. So that you can discern. But Zechariah 12, Malachi 3 is tough. When you go into Malachi 3, we talk about Elijah comes, the temple comes, the glory of God of Israel comes. Elijah's ark of refiner's fire training the Levites to make the offerings acceptable unto the Lord. And then in verse 4, the offerings are pleasant or enjoyable to the Lord, and as in the days of old, as in the former years. And then it says, I will come near to you to judgment. So I think it's after this the bad ones get judged. And I'll be a swift witness against the sorcerers, the adulterers, these are your Satan bots, the false swearers, and other bad people. These are the 2/3 getting cut off, and the 1/3 get, raised up, like the Levites do. For he is Jehovah, and he changes not. Um, then he talks about bringing the tithes into the warehouse, into the storehouses. So that would mean the temple's already there. It has to. And does that mean the siege happened already or it didn't happen? I don't know. It could be after. He could be talking about after the siege is over, the people relax, they get lax, and they don't want to give the tithes and the offerings for the temple. They don't want the tithes, it's the money to the priesthood, and maybe other products, and probably just the money, and then the offerings are the offerings, which turn into food for the Kohanim and the Levites. So, probably there's someplace the poor too get partaking in this. Probably the money, I'm not sure. So it's rather difficult to sequence and get timing on this, guys. It's not simple. So keep praying. We might get more insight. Maybe I'll see it differently or better. But I'm working on hunches right now, but I'm not in the hunch mode on the siege is taking place. Israelis can't go into Lebanon. Hezbollah people and civilians are back by the border. It's a war zone. Okay, that likely is going to blow up. It's very shaky ground. Gaza thing, Israelis can't go into Gaza. That's going to blow. The Houthis in Yemen, we can't go there. They're not on our border, but they could be laying siege on us anyway. Syria is not exactly actively taking place, but rest assured they'll join in. Turkey will see to it. Turkey will join in. Iraq will join in. Iran, and so forth. And are we going to see Iran and the Houthis in Yemen, or Yemen get destroyed before the Zechariah 12:10 when the enemies get burned up? I think so. I don't think, you see, Iran, Elam, which can be, but doesn't necessarily have to be, Iran, parts of Iraq and parts of Syria, get destroyed by their enemies in the plural, which means it's not just Israel. So that would mean the two witnesses are not doing it. Yemen could be different. Maybe we're not supposed to have all these details about this. I don't know. But it sure looks to me the siege is coming together. The next step for Jordan, if Trump continues, is to put troops on their border with Israel more than what they have now. The troops there now stop the crazy terrorists from coming into Israel, which could cause a war. Jordan could never win a war against us. I doubt Egypt could. I doubt Hezbollah could. But when you put them all together, you add in Turkey, you add in Iran, you add in Iraq and Syria and all of this stuff together, they build their confidence up and say, oh, they can't stop us with too many. But they don't put God in their plans. The best thing I could think of is to just pray for more answers, timing and sequencing. That's the best I can come up with for today. But it sure looks like that's where we're headed. So is Iran threatening us with a war? They just said repeatedly that they're going to attack us again at the time of their choosing. The Houthis are always threatening us. So yeah, I'd say we're well on our way in the siege. I'd say we're waiting for the latter stage of it. I'll keep trying to get more information from you, for you, and see if I can help more. And I want to know myself, believe me. But this is so difficult. Maybe there's scriptures somewhere else I don't know about that help us with this. Pray for that. So close yet still in the dark, huh? So be rejoicing because the time is so close. It's so close. Lots of people unsubscribe from me in various places on the Twitter and the Telegram and the YouTube because I talk against Trump. You see, they're so foolish. They just will not let anybody take it away from them that Trump is their great savior and deliverer. And they don't have much knowledge of the Bible, obviously. And they don't understand that Trump is an immoral, anti-biblical principled individual. He had a mullah from a mosque do a blessing at his inauguration. Oh my gosh, how can anybody believe he's a Christian after that? If you went out and had a Muslim mullah from a mosque perform a blessing on you, what do you think Jehovah would do with you? You think he'd let it go? He says he's a jealous God. You're going to unclean spirits. You're going to the enemy, to the devil, to get a blessing. And you think God would not deal with you about that. I don't see God dealing with Trump because Trump's not a believer. But you can't reach these people. They're not going to wake up. They're going to take a perpetual sleep and they'll wake up after it's all over and they're gone. Then they'll wake up. Too late. So I'll keep reporting the news. Anything emergency pops up, I'll do a unscheduled live stream. Could be in the middle of the day or the evening. So you might want to check the YouTube channel if you're interested during the day to see if I did any such live stream, because they don't send notices out but like once a day, I think. So you could check that. The other thing is you could check my Telegram, because once I'm finished with those extra live streams, I put them on Telegram. So you can do that. To get the Telegram, you have to have the app, Telegram Messenger, and then just write me on my email. It's at the bottom of the description box. It's the top of the chat. It's Israel Giving with the number 7@gmail.com, and I'll send you the invite link, and you can join the Telegram, which is free, and the app is free. Okay, so I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and please pray for me and my wife. Peace, safety, protection, joy, healing, finances, that I get that document in the mail. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. They're all rescues, and for the peace of Yerushalayim. And I'm out. Thank you.